20 years of loyalty, kids, and love, gone. Forced into a prenup by her rich family, I never saw this coming, until she betrayed me with someone half her age. Now, I'm walking away. Alright, I'm not even sure how to start this, but here I am at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the anger that's consuming me. I never thought I'd be the guy sharing his life falling apart on the internet, but here we are. My wife of 20 plus years, Jennifer, 47, cheated on me. Let me say that clearly. 20 damn years. I gave her everything, my time, my love, my kids, and she threw it all away for some guy who's closer in age to our kids than to her. I don't even think I'm fully angry yet. It's more of a dull, numbing ache that's slowly creeping in. But this all started way before the affair, before everything fell apart. Jennifer and I married in our early 20s, met in college. Classic story, right? I didn't come from money. My parents were hard workers, but we weren't wealthy. Jennifer, though, was from a different world. Her dad, Richard, owned big businesses, and her mom, Barbara, hosted charity events like it was her 9 to 5. From the start, I could tell her parents didn't like me. They never said it outright, but I could see it in their eyes, in the way Barbara grilled me about my future, like I was being interviewed for a job. But I loved their daughter, and she loved me. That's all that mattered, right? Or so I thought. Then, when we got engaged, the prenup came up. I still remember sitting in their enormous living room, Richard giving me the death stare while their lawyer laid out the terms. Essentially, if we ever divorced, Jennifer wouldn't owe me a cent, and I'd have no claim to any of their family's money. At the time, I didn't care. I wasn't marrying her for her wealth, and I said that. I was just a broke college kid, so what did I have to argue about? I signed it without a second thought. Now that I think back, that was the first moment they treated me like I was less than them, like I didn't matter as much as Jennifer or their family name, but I let it slide. I loved her, she loved me, and that was enough. A few years later, we were married with our first daughter Ashley. Life felt good. I worked hard at my job, bringing in a decent salary while Jennifer stayed home with the baby. That was her choice, and I was fine with it. Honestly, I was proud to be able to provide for us so she could stay home. We talked about hiring a nanny or putting Ashley in daycare, but Jennifer said no. She wanted to be there for the kids, and I supported that. As the years went by, we had 3 more kids. Liam, Matthew, and Emily. Money was tight at times, but we always made it work. I worked harder, Jennifer took care of the kids and the house. We were a team, or so I thought. During this time, Jennifer's family's money made life easier for her. They'd send her allowances or cover expenses like vacations, clothes, and private schooling for the kids. Jennifer's family's wealth meant she didn't have to stress over money, and honestly, I didn't mind. I was still pulling my weight at home. I paid for the house, groceries, bills, whatever we needed to keep our lives going. Then, about 10 years ago, her family's money started drying up. I don't know all the details, but there were lawsuits, some bad investments, and eventually the allowances stopped. Richard's businesses went under, Barbara lost her precious charities. It was like watching a slow train wreck, except it wasn't my problem. Around this time, Jennifer started to change. She didn't get a job. I didn't ask her to. I just assumed we'd keep going like we always had, but she started becoming bitter, complaining more about the things we didn't have, talking about how different life was before the money ran out. At the time, I thought she was just struggling with the transition. Her whole life before me was one of privilege, and now she was living a life like everyone else. I thought we'd push through. I had no idea she'd throw everything away. Here's the part that stings the most. After 20 years of me being the stable one, of me being the provider while she stayed home, the prenup is screwing Jennifer, not me. She has no alimony rights because of it. That was part of the deal, and at the time, she and her family didn't think it would ever matter, but now that she's cheated, now that I'm leaving her, she's realizing what that prenup actually means. The only thing we own together is our house. It's paid off, but the upkeep, taxes, and HOA fees are not cheap. Once the divorce is finalized and the house gets sold, she'll get her share of the proceeds, sure, but after that, she'll have to figure out what to do. I know that sounds harsh, but I'm done caring. She made her choices. I never wanted this. I married her because I loved her. I gave her 2 decades of my life. I helped her raise 4 amazing kids. I worked my ass off so she didn't have to worry about money, and she repaid me by throwing it all away for someone who probably doesn't even know what it's like to have a mortgage. I don't feel guilty for leaving her penniless, and I don't think I should. She didn't feel guilty when she cheated on me. Actions have consequences, and now she has to deal with them. I guess I should explain how I found out about the affair because, looking back, it almost feels surreal. Like, how did I miss the signs? Was I that blind, or did I just not want to see it? I still go over it in my head, trying to pinpoint when exactly she started drifting away from me, when our marriage quietly fell apart while I was too busy to notice. It all started a few months ago. I'd been working later than usual. Work's been rough this year, with layoffs and constant pressure to perform, so I was putting in extra hours trying to make sure everything stayed afloat. Jennifer, meanwhile, seemed fine. She wasn't complaining about me working late like she used to, which, in hindsight, should have been a red flag. I just thought she was used to it after all these years. One night, I came home and found her on her phone, laughing at something. As soon as I walked in, she quickly put the phone down. That's when it hit me, that odd gut-wrenching feeling that something wasn't right. I brushed it off at first because, honestly, what was I going to say? Hey, I didn't like the way you laughed at your phone. It sounded ridiculous. But that feeling? It didn't go away. Over the next few weeks, she became more and more secretive with her phone. She took it everywhere, bathroom, kitchen, even into the garden while watering the plants. This was so unlike her. Jennifer had never been glued to her phone. She used to make fun of me for always being on my laptop. Now, suddenly, her phone was her new constant companion. I tried to convince myself I was just imagining things. After 20 years, I thought I knew her better than anyone. I kept pushing the feeling aside, telling myself it was just stress or paranoia. But then, there were the strange errands. She started running errands more often, always by herself, always at strange hours. I'd come home, and the kids would tell me, Mom just went to grab some groceries, or, she said she was picking up a gift for someone. The breaking point came when I saw her parked at a strip mall across town one day. I'd left work early, totally unplanned, because one of my meetings got canceled. I was driving by to grab lunch when I spotted our car. I thought she was probably shopping, but when I pulled into the lot, I saw her sitting in the car with someone in the passenger seat. I couldn't see his face, but I knew right away. It wasn't one of our kids. I froze. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I didn't confront her then. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was afraid of what I might find, or maybe I was still trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. I just sat there for a moment, staring at the car, before I turned around and drove home. That night, I couldn't look at her the same. Every word she said, every smile she gave felt fake, like I was seeing her through a whole new lens. It gnawed at me, and I knew I had to know the truth. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm also not sorry. I went through her phone. She'd left it charging in the kitchen while she showered, and I saw my chance. The password hadn't changed, so I got in right away. The messages were there, dozens of texts from someone named Ryan. I read them all, and with every word, my stomach sank. They'd been seeing each other for months. The texts weren't even careful, flirty, suggestive, and at times outright disgusting, with things like, "Can't wait to see you again," or, "Last night was amazing." There were a few pictures too, nothing too graphic, but enough to make it clear what was happening. It felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. I stood there in the kitchen, holding her phone, shaking. My head was pounding. I put it back exactly where I'd found it and walked outside because I couldn't breathe. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at nothing, but eventually, I went back in. She came out of the bathroom with wet hair, asking if I wanted to watch a movie later. She smiled at me, smiled like nothing had happened. That's what I can't get past, how easily she could lie to my face, look me in the eyes, and act like everything was fine. That night, I didn't say a word. I slept, or pretended to, on my side of the bed while she snored softly next to me. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do. Part of me wanted to wake her up right then and confront her, scream at her, demand answers, but another part of me felt numb, like if I stayed quiet long enough, maybe I could pretend I hadn't seen anything. The next day, I called a lawyer. I didn't say a word to Jennifer. I just left for work, sat in my car for an hour, and then found a divorce attorney who came highly recommended. I didn't want to play games. I wanted to know my options and what I could do to get out of this marriage as cleanly as possible. My lawyer was great. She walked me through everything calmly and told me I needed to act smart, not emotional. She said not to confront Jennifer yet and to start gathering evidence. The texts were a good start, but I needed more, so for the next week, I pretended everything was fine. I acted normal while quietly gathering proof. Bank statements, her location history, screenshots of messages. I felt like a damn detective in my own house. It was the worst week of my life. Finally, I had enough. My lawyer filed the paperwork, and Jennifer got served the next morning. Her face when she opened the envelope is something I'll never forget. Shock, confusion, maybe even a little fear. She looked up at me, and all I said was, "I know." I didn't yell, I didn't explain. I just walked out of the room. I'll never forget that day because it was the last time I felt like my life was still somewhat in my control. Little did I know things were about to get even messier. I'll be honest, when I first found out about the affair, my biggest concern was keeping it between me and Jennifer. I didn't want my kids dragged into it. They didn't deserve this mess, and I didn't want to shatter their relationship with their mother. I figured the less they knew the better. I thought I was protecting them. Of course, that's not how it went. The moment Jennifer got served with divorce papers, she decided to flip the script. Instead of dealing with what she'd done, she ran straight to our kids and turned on the waterworks. I wasn't there to see it firsthand, but apparently, she sat them all down in the living room and told them I was giving up on the family and rushing to divorce over one mistake. One mistake, that's how she described it, like forgetting to take out the trash or being late for dinner. Liam, 18, our youngest, was the first to come to me about it. He's always been the no-nonsense kid of the family. He knocked on my office door one evening, sat down, and flat out asked me, "Dad, what's going on?" I tried to keep it simple. I said, "Your mom and I are having some serious issues, and we're not going to stay together." He nodded, processed it for a second, then asked, "Did she cheat?" The question hit me like a punch. I wasn't expecting him to put it together so fast, but Liam's always been sharper than people give him credit for. I didn't lie. I said, "Yes, she did." I saw the anger flash across his face, but he didn't say anything else. He just nodded again and left. That was the start of it. From there, the other kids began asking questions. Emily, 20, texted me first. She's quieter than the others, more reserved, and I think she was trying to feel me out. She asked if it was true that I'd filed for divorce. When I confirmed, she simply replied, "Okay." No follow-up, no judgment. Emily's always kept her thoughts to herself, but I could tell she was hurt. Matthew, 19, was more upset about the whole situation. A few days later, he called and asked if there was any way we could work things out for the family. I had to explain that trust is the foundation of a marriage, and once it's gone, it's impossible to rebuild. I told him I couldn't stay with someone who could look me in the eyes and lie to me. He seemed to get it, even though I knew he wasn't happy about it. Then there's Ashley, 22. I saved her for last because, honestly, her reaction has been the hardest for me. Ashley's always been closer to her mom than to me. Not that we didn't get along, but I was the strict parent, the one who made the rules, while Jennifer was the fun, easygoing one. So, I wasn't surprised when Ashley sided with her mom, but it still hurt like hell. One evening, Ashley showed up at my house, practically demanding to talk. I let her in, and she wasted no time. "Why are you doing this to Mom?" That's the first thing she said. No questions about what happened, no asking for my side, just accusing me. I stayed calm because, at the end of the day, she's still my daughter, and I love her. I told her the truth, plain and simple. Her mom cheated. I couldn't forgive that, and I wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. Ashley shook her head and started crying. But she's sorry. She knows she messed up, and she wants to fix it. That's when I couldn't hold back anymore. I told her, "Ashley, this isn't something you fix. This isn't a broken plate you can glue back together. Your mom made choices that destroyed this marriage. I'm not staying married to someone who doesn't respect me." She looked at me like I slapped her. "You're just giving up," she said. "You're destroying this family because you're too proud to forgive her." That's when I cracked. I wanted to shout, to scream that I'd given 20 goddamn years to this marriage, and it was her mother who destroyed it. But I bit my tongue because yelling wouldn't change anything. Instead, I said, "Ashley, I love you, but this is between your mom and me. You don't understand everything, and it's not your job to fix it." She left angry, and for the next few weeks, every time I heard from her, it was more pleading, crying, and begging me to give her mom another chance. I kept offering therapy for her because I knew she was hurting, but she wouldn't take it. She just kept telling me there would be nothing to cope with if I'd just stopped the divorce. At that point, I had to limit contact with her for my own mental health. It broke my heart, but I couldn't keep having the same argument over and over. I told her I'd talk to her again once things calmed down, but until then, I needed space. The other kids stayed mostly neutral. Liam stopped talking to his mom entirely once he found out about the cheating. Emily tried to stay out of it, but I could tell she was quietly on my side. Matthew seemed torn, but he kept his distance from both of us. Jennifer, though, saw all of this as leverage. She knew Ashley's reaction would get to me, So she used it to manipulate me. Suddenly, Ashley was sending me long texts about how much her mom regretted what she'd done, how she deserved a second chance, and how I was being unfair. I knew exactly where those words were coming from. It wasn't Ashley. It was her mother. That was the moment I realized Jennifer wasn't just trying to save our marriage. She was trying to save herself. She knew the prenup screwed her over, and now she was weaponizing our kids to pressure me. That realization made me angrier than anything else. It was like she didn't care how much damage she was causing as long as she got what she wanted. I wish I could say I handled this perfectly, but I didn't. Watching my kids get dragged into this mess, seeing Ashley fight me while Jennifer pulled the strings, it broke something in me. I felt like I was losing my family piece by piece, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do to stop it. If you've been following my story, you already know that things were bad, but what happened at Emily's birthday took everything to another level. It's the kind of night I'll never forget, no matter how much I wish I could. Emily turned 20 a couple of weeks ago, and we'd planned a small family dinner at my house. Nothing fancy, just the kids, a cake, and some pizza, something casual since Emily's not the big party type. I knew it was going to be awkward because it was the first time Jennifer and I would be in the same room since I filed for divorce. I also hadn't spoken much to Ashley since our last fight, but I figured everyone could suck it up for one night. It was Emily's birthday, after all. A couple of days before, I texted Ashley and Jennifer to let them know my one ground rule: don't bring up the divorce. I told them this was for Emily, and I wasn't going to let our issues ruin her day. I thought I'd covered my bases. Ashley never replied to my text, and Jennifer didn't either. That should have been my first clue that things were going to go sideways. The day of the dinner, everyone showed up. Jennifer was the last to arrive, which was typical for her. She always had to make an entrance. She walked in with Ashley right behind her, and immediately I felt the tension. Jennifer smiled at me like nothing had happened, and Ashley didn't even look at me. I kept my mouth shut because I wasn't about to start a fight. Dinner itself was tense. The kids were trying their best to keep the mood light, cracking jokes and talking about work or school, but you could feel it? It's hard to describe, but it was like there was this invisible weight sitting on all of us. Every time Jennifer said something, it felt forced, like she was trying too hard to act normal. Ashley was quiet, which isn't like her at all. She usually talks everyone's ear off, but that night she barely said 2 words. Then we got to the cake. Emily seemed happy enough. I was trying my best to focus on her, to make her feel celebrated even though everything felt awkward. But as soon as the candles were blown out and we started cutting the cake, Jennifer decided it was the perfect moment for her little speech. "Isn't it nice to have the family all together again?" she said, raising her glass as if we were in some picture-perfect family movie. "It's so important to set aside differences and come together for the people we love." I froze. I could feel my face getting hot because I knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't about Emily or her birthday. It was about the divorce. She was trying to guilt-trip me in front of our kids, and the worst part was, she was doing it under the guise of being the loving mother. The room fell silent. I looked over at Emily, and she was staring down at her plate, clearly uncomfortable. Liam, my youngest, was the first to break the silence. "Are you serious right now?" he said, glaring at Jennifer. "You couldn't just keep it to yourself for one night?" Jennifer tried to play innocent. "What? I'm just saying it's nice to be together, that's all." Liam wasn't buying it. "No, you're not. You're making everything about you, like always." That's when Ashley jumped in. "She's not making it about her," she snapped at Liam. "She's trying to fix things. She's the only one who's trying to keep this family together." By now, my head was pounding. I wanted to stop this before it escalated into a full-blown fight, so I said, "Enough. This isn't the time or the place," but it was too late. Emily, who'd been quiet all night, suddenly slammed her fork onto the table. "Oh my God, just stop," she yelled. "Ashley, you're only on Mom's side because you helped her cheat." The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I turned to Emily, stunned. "What did you just say?" I asked. Emily's face was red with anger. Angrier than I'd ever seen her. She turned toward Ashley. "You knew, didn't you? You knew about Mom's affair, and you helped her hide it." I looked at Ashley, and she went pale. She didn't say a word. She just sat there, looking like she was about to melt into the chair. That's when it hit me, Emily was telling the truth. My own daughter, my oldest child, had known about the affair. Not only that, but she had helped her mother cover it up. I can't even begin to describe what I felt in that moment. It wasn't just anger, it was betrayal piled on top of betrayal. It was like a knife was twisted in my back all over again. I turned to Ashley and asked, Is that true? Did you know? She didn't answer. She didn't deny it. She just stared down at her lap. Jennifer tried to intervene and deflect. Let's not do this right now, she said, her voice shaking. This isn't the time. Liam cut her off. Are you kidding me? You did this, and now Ashley helped you? You're unbelievable. The whole dinner turned into chaos. Emily stormed out of the room. Liam was yelling at Ashley, and Matthew just sat there, stunned, unable to move. I didn't know what to do. I was too angry, too hurt, too overwhelmed to process what was happening. I stood up, looked at Ashley, and said, "We're done talking for now. I can't even look at you." Then I walked out. I sat in my car for probably an hour that night, trying to process it all. Jennifer had betrayed me, but Ashley? I never thought she'd be capable of something like this. I get that she's close to her mom, but covering up an affair, helping her lie to me, that's something I don't think I can ever forgive. When I went back inside, the house was quiet. Everyone had left. I sat in the dark for a while, feeling like everything I'd built was crumbling around me. That night, I decided I couldn't keep trying to fix things with Ashley, not now, not after this. I'd already lost Jennifer, and now I felt like I'd lost my daughter too. After Emily's birthday dinner blew up, I spent the next few days in a fog. I barely slept. I'd sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that would go cold, just staring at nothing. The silence in my house, which used to feel comforting after a long day, now felt heavy and suffocating. It's weird how everything can look the same, but nothing feels the same anymore. The truth is, what Emily revealed about Ashley broke me in a way I didn't think was possible. I always assumed that if my marriage ever fell apart, and let's be honest, no one thinks it will, my kids would still be my anchor. I figured no matter what happened between me and their mother, they'd at least understand I did everything I could for this family. But finding out that Ashley, my oldest daughter, the one I carried on my shoulders as a toddler and stayed up late helping with homework as a teenager, knew about the affair and helped cover it up, that hit me like a freight train. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How do you even process something like that? Was she lying to my face all these months too? How long had she known? Did she sit at the dinner table with me, laughing at my jokes while knowing her mother was sneaking around behind my back? It made me question everything, every hug, every "I love you," every conversation we'd ever had. It all felt tainted. I didn't want to believe Emily at first. I hoped she'd been mistaken, that maybe she'd misunderstood something, but when I replayed the look on Ashley's face that night, how pale she went, how she didn't deny it, I knew. She couldn't even look me in the eye, and her silence told me everything I needed to know. The next morning, I tried to distract myself. I went for a long drive with no destination, just circling the outskirts of town with the windows down. It didn't help. Everywhere I looked, I was reminded of my family, of the life I thought I'd built, the gas station I'd taken Ashley to when she was learning to drive, the park where we used to have picnics, the ice cream shop the kids loved when they were younger. It was like my entire town was mocking me. When I got home, I sat down and tried to write Ashley a text. I thought maybe I could calmly ask her why she'd do this, why she'd betray me like that, but every time I started typing, my anger took over. I'd begin with, "How could you?" and delete it. I'd try something softer, like, "Can we talk?" But it felt pointless. What was there to say? I knew I'd just end up yelling, and I didn't want that, so I didn't send anything. I spent most of that day replaying memories of Ashley in my head. When she was little, she used to sit in my lap and tell me I was her hero. I was the one who took her to her first concert when she was 13. I remember how happy she was, holding my hand the entire time because the crowd was huge, and she didn't want to get lost. She used to call me for advice about boys or college classes when she moved out. So, how did we get here? How did I become the villain in her eyes? I keep wondering if I wasn't enough of a dad to her. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I didn't spend enough time bonding with her, and that's why she sided with her mom so easily. I don't know. I'll probably never know. That evening, I finally broke down. I'll admit it, I'm not ashamed. I cried like I haven't cried since I lost my own father. It wasn't just about Jennifer anymore. It was about my daughter. I've always been the type to keep it together for everyone else, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. I was grieving the family I thought I had, the trust I thought we shared. It felt like I'd lost everything all at once. After that, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep sitting in my house, feeling sorry for myself. I couldn't keep driving myself crazy replaying what Ashley did or why she did it. I love her. She's my daughter, but I realized I can't fix this right now. She made her choice, and I can't let her guilt trip me into fixing a marriage that's already over. I texted her the next morning. It wasn't long, just, "Ashley, I love you, but I need space right now. I can't talk about this until I've had time to process. I hope you understand." She didn't respond. It hurt not to hear back, but in a weird way, it gave me peace. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was taking control of something. Ashley wants to blame me for breaking up the family, but I refuse to carry that burden. I didn't cheat, I didn't lie, I didn't drag her into this mess. Her mother did that, and if Ashley wants to ignore that, it's on her, not me. I've decided to focus on the kids who do understand. Liam hasn't spoken to his mom since Emily's birthday. He's angry, but I can tell he's also trying to hold it together. I talked to him briefly about what happened, and he just said, "Mom screwed up. That's not on you." Hearing him say that made me realize I'm not alone. Emily's been quiet since her outburst, but I pulled her aside the other day to check on her. I told her I was proud of her for standing up for what was right, even if it caused a scene. She teared up a little and said, "I just wanted the truth to come out." I hugged her, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe things would be okay. Matthew's still keeping his distance, but I know he'll come around eventually. He's always been the middle ground kid, and I don't blame him for not wanting to take sides. As for Jennifer, I haven't spoken to her directly since Emily's birthday. My lawyer handles everything now, and I plan to keep it that way. The less contact I have with her, the better. I don't know what the future holds with Ashley. Maybe one day she'll realize what she did, and we can rebuild our relationship. Or maybe we'll never recover from this. All I know is I can't force her to see the truth, and I can't let her guilt manipulate me anymore. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time, focusing on the kids who are still here for me.